The Republican Party has chosen its ticket for the presidential election. They've got a lot of ground to cover ahead of that election. Tonight, on a special installment of Capital Connection, CBS 58's Emilee Fannon and A.J. Bayatpour look at the key counties that could determine who wins Wisconsin in November.
Welcome to a very special edition of Capital Connection. We are here inside Pfizer Forum, breaking down the Republican National Convention now that the ticket is set. I'm joined now by my colleague A.J. Bayatpour to break it all down and some of the key moments that we witnessed over the 4 days of the convention. And like I said, the ticket is now set. Former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance now have the next 4 months to hit the campaign trail and try to convince voters that they are going to be the next president and vice president. But looking back at the speech too, right, we know from the former president his big night was on Thursday. He made a splash in a sense that his tone was all about unity. It was a very different way from past speeches, right, AJ?
Yeah, it was interesting in that you normally expect when former President Trump has one of these big speeches, it's going to be high energy in more points. And there wasn't a lot of high energy in the speech. Certainly the first 20 minutes, that was understandable because he was recounting surviving an assassination attempt on Saturday. After that, there was some of those hallmarks that you see, especially in this particular campaign where Mr. Trump is really hammering away on the economy, focusing on inflation. Certainly the selection of J.D. Vance as his running mate plays into that, as there was nothing subtle about the repeated mentions on Wednesday of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, trying to win those blue-collar votes in those 3 states that may well decide this race. Then coming back into today, some of that message, a lot about immigration, which again is something that, I mean, really it's where Mr. Trump made a name for himself back in 2016. So those key points he's hitting, just not that same level of energy, which certainly on one hand is understandable given what the last 5 days has been like for him on a personal level. But we were expecting maybe a 55-minute speech that ended up going over an hour and a half. And from our vantage point, I don't know what it looked like for you on the floor. From here, we could see people in the back. They started sitting down. People started looking at their phones.
Right.
There wasn't that same level of enthusiasm that there was when, say, Hulk Hogan was yelling and ripping his shirt off.
Right, that was another key moment, definitely. And looking what we talked to throughout the week, we talked to a lot of Wisconsin delegates and just voters in general about what a J.D. Vance, Donald Trump ticket could be and what could it mean here in the battleground state, because we already know that Democrats are closely aligning J.D. Vance to the former president, attacking him, criticizing him on his past views on abortion. He, like the former president, used to support a national abortion ban. We know that Democrats are banking on that issue this year, but does it appeal to the suburban women and the WOW counties? That's the Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington, those key areas that used to be reliably red, AJ, and have been trending blue over recent statewide elections. You kind of looked at the maps this week in our coverage comparing to 2016 to 2020 to 2022. What did you find out there?
Well, you look at the last 2 presidential elections, Emily, and they were both decided in 2016 and 2020 by 22,000 votes. So the reality is Donald Trump is almost assuredly going to win Waukesha, Ozaukee, certainly Washington counties, but it's the margin. How much is he winning by? In 2016 and 2020, he was winning, but that margin of victory was about 2 percentage points smaller than Ron Johnson in the 2016 and 22 re-election wins that he had. In those counties, that's a handful, that's several thousand votes. Even in Milwaukee County, that's a blue county, but you want to be competitive there, or relatively competitive there. You're talking about potentially a 20,000 vote difference just in Milwaukee County between Mr. Trump and Ron Johnson. So if Democrats are able to effectively hammer away on the issues of abortion, if they're able to hold the fort on the Latino and black votes and encourage turnout, those are the margins that are going to make such a big difference in this race. And it leads you to really understand why the Democrats would hammer away specifically on abortion with J.D. Vance, because as you mentioned, he was a proponent of the national abortion ban. And Christopher Devine, the University of Dayton professor we talked to over the last couple of weeks, he pointed out that J.D. Vance carried counties in suburban Cleveland and suburban Columbus, and those very same counties a year later voted in favor of enshrining abortion rights as a constitutional amendment in Ohio. Those are the voters that may very well swing states like Michigan and Wisconsin this year.
And this weekend we know that that former president and his new running mate are going to be hitting the campaign trail hard, and this is definitely a ticket that we'll be paying very close attention to. That's it for now that we have, but thank you so much for joining us on this very special edition, just breaking down some of the key moments of the Republican National Convention.